Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Friday. Happy Freaky Friday to all you freaks out there. Hope your day and your week have been going very well so far. Got a new day, which of course means a new NBA player prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day means some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. Today is Freaky Friday, which of course means we have our Freaky Friday 5-leg parlay coming your way in today's video. But first, guys, before we dive into today's parlay, a quick little recap of how we did last night. And truth be told, it wasn't a bad day. We actually went 2-0 in our single bet category yesterday. Giannis Antetokounmpo, and yes, I call him Yanni because that's the Greek way. Over 30.5 points. We did cash that. And then Curry over 30.5 points plus assists. We cashed that as well. So we actually did do pretty well in our single bet category. However, unfortunately, day 3 of our April ladder challenge, we fell short. Paolo Banchero was no doubt cashed it, but Luka, probably going to take a break from betting on Luka for a little bit. He's now failed me 3 times in a row betting on him. Not going to put him in the do not bet graveyard, but I am going to probably take a break from betting Luka. He just isn't shooting the ball well. But looking down below, guys, we're now 188 and 153 on the season with our single bet category, up over 14.54 units on the year. Across parlays and single bets, we are up over 24.58 units on the year. So we're having a really good season. Again, unfortunately, the parlay part of it lost us a little bit, but not a terrible night. So unfortunately, that's the end of the April ladder challenge, but have no fear because we have another parlay coming your way right now. And I forgot to mention, guys, every Friday we do this. Comment Freaky down below. And if today's parlay hits, one lucky commenter will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. We have done a couple giveaways this week. Give me a couple days. I know I haven't given out the card just yet to a couple of the winners. Just give me a couple of days. We'll get it all sorted out. But I think it was it Monday? The start of the ladder challenge parlays. But we still have some winners to give out for this past week. But we also have another giveaway today. Comment Freaky down below, and if this parlay hits, one lucky commenter will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. All right, guys, moving into the outlier screen, our first leg of our 5-leg parlay, we are targeting the Kings-Hornets game, 7 p.m. tip-off. We've got Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets over 17.5 points. Now, again, like I usually do, I like to use DraftKings for these parlays. We are using DraftKings for today's Freaky Friday 5-leg parlay, and yes, we are using alternate lines for all 5 legs of today's parlay. This one is for minus 175 odds over on DraftKings. As always, guys, the easiest way to go ahead and tail my parlays, the link is down below in the description. I'll show you guys at the end of the video how that works. But Miles Bridges over 17.5 points. The recent data, okay, 5 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 16.6 points per game over his last 10 games. He has cashed it each of his last 3. However, the further out you search the data, I think the more impressive it gets. The last 20 game data, a 70% hit rate for Miles Bridges, averaging 21.6 points per game over his last 20 games. And search out even further to the entire season, a 67% hit rate on the year, 41 out of 61 games he's cashed this over for Charlotte, averaging 20.59 points per game this year for the Hornets. So some pretty good numbers overall. He's had in the last 10 games a couple of pretty bad misses here and there, but the numbers still seem to be pretty solid overall. From a head-to-head perspective, he has cashed this in each of his last 3 meetings with the Sacramento Kings dating back to last season. He's averaging 24.67 points per game across those last 3 matchups with Sacramento. And they did play earlier this year on February 24th. That was the game where Charlotte got blown out by almost 50, or by it was 42 points. He still had 23 points in that blowout loss. So pretty good numbers across the board here for Miles Bridges. The biggest risk factor here, obviously, is the minutes played for Miles Bridges. Is he going to play enough minutes in this one to go ahead and cash this over? It's only 17.5 points. It's a pretty low line. Even if he only plays like 25 minutes, 18 points is very doable for Miles Bridges in 25 minutes, especially considering the matchup here versus power forward Sacramento overall this year, bottom 3 in the NBA. If you do narrow it down to the last 7 games, they are a little bit better defensively, but still bottom half of the league. Versus small forwards overall, 22nd in points allowed. You narrow that down, they are bottom 5 in points allowed to the small forward position. So he plays between the 3 and 4. Whichever way he shakes out in the lineup, I think it's a pretty good matchup either way. Sacramento not very well known for being a defensive juggernaut. And they are at home in Charlotte, and looking at the numbers when playing at home this year, a 75% hit rate in Charlotte this year. 21 out of 28 games at home, he's cashed the over, averaging 22.04 points per game. And of course, we know Charlotte, all the injuries they have, right? No LaMelo Ball, no Brandon Miller. So just to go ahead and show you guys, no Brandon Miller and no LaMelo Ball. Mark Williams also a game time decision, but at home this year, he's played 9 home games without those guys. 89% hit rate at home. Overall, though, an 80% hit rate without LaMelo Ball and without Brandon Miller in the lineup. So a pretty good first leg of our 5-leg parlay. All right, guys, our second leg of our 5-leg parlay. We're moving on to the Jazz-Pacers game, 7 p.m. tip-off. We're going Isaiah Collier of the Utah Jazz over 19.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, which is available on DraftKings for minus 245 odds, a very juiced line to be sure. But pretty good recent numbers. 8 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 23 PRAs per game over his last 10 games. Go ahead and stretch those numbers out to the last 20 games. A 70% hit rate over his last 20 games, averaging 22.55 PRAs per game over his last 20 games. Obviously, Isaiah being a rookie for this Jazz team, they're obviously not going very far. They're tanking for Cooper Flagg potentially. And, I mean, part of it's just injuries also they can't really control. But I think with Isaiah obviously being a rookie, there is an emphasis to go ahead and give him more opportunities and more minutes and more playing time, which kind of absolves him from the risk of blowouts, because even in the event of a blowout, I do think, especially with all the injuries they have, Isaiah's going to play a lot of minutes. Even if they get blown out, which, you know, the Pacers definitely could with the way they've been playing lately, I still like Isaiah a lot in this spot compared to someone like a Colin Sexton, who I normally would take in a game like this. And Colin Sexton, to be fair, is not a bad bet for this game either for his points, rebounds, assist line. But I do think in the sense of a blowout, Colin Sexton is going to get benched before Isaiah Collier is, because the Jazz want to develop Isaiah, give him more shots, give him more minutes, and give him more opportunities. And the recent run seems to suggest that with the injuries and with everything going on, even in blowouts, he's been cashing these overs. So pretty good numbers. The overall data is not great, and you do see the first half of the year a lot of red, a lot more green of late here. A 49% hit rate on the season, averaging 17.96 PRAs per game overall this year. Now, him being a rookie and the Pacers being an Eastern Conference team, the sample size for head-to-head data is very small. But they did play earlier this year back on February 3rd, and he did cash the over with 11 points, 1 rebound, and 10 assists in that earlier matchup. And he did play almost 32 minutes in that game, so that's kind of what we need to see. Didn't even shoot the ball that well either, 5 for 12. So he cashed the over, but could have done better, obviously. In Indiana, we talked about this defensively overall. They rank okay, but we know, again, on the perimeter, they're not a great defensive team. 20th overall in points allowed to point guards, 22nd in assists allowed. They actually don't give up a ton of rebounds to point guards here. But looking down below here, some point guards that have kind of had some good games. I mean, obviously, SGA went crazy. Even Carlton Carrington cashes over. Luka, Mike Conley. I mean, you know, KJ Simpson for the Hornets. I mean, you know, he didn't cash his line, but it's also KJ Simpson. No offense to KJ Simpson. I'm just saying, obviously, a lower tier than some of these other guys we're talking about. The other key thing I want to show you guys real quick before we move on, because obviously this is, so far the data is pretty good across the board here, is obviously the numbers without some of these guys. So John Collins out, Jordan Clarkson out, Lauri Markkanen out, and Walker Kessler. All 4 of those guys being out. This year, with all 4 being out, he's played 9 games out those 4. He's cashed the over in 7 of those 9 games. It's a 78% hit rate, averaging 24.67 PRAs per game in those 9 games without those 4 guys. So more opportunities, obviously, with those 4 being out. I think it's a pretty good player prop to go ahead and tail. Minus 245 for a reason, obviously. But that's our second leg of our 5-leg parlay. All right, guys, our third leg of our 5-leg parlay. We're moving on to the Suns-Celtics game, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. We've got Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics over 34.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, which we're getting for minus 260 odds over on DraftKings. Another very juiced line here, but juiced for good reason. The data is absolutely phenomenal across the board. 9 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 42.2 PRAs per game over his last 10 games. You go ahead and stretch the data out to the last 20, still phenomenal. 18 of his last 20 games, he's cashed the over. That's a 90% hit rate, averaging 43.45 PRAs per game over his last 20 games. And he's only missed twice in the last 20 games. One of them he missed by 1 there versus the Nuggets. He had 16, 11, and 7. And then Miami, they got blown out the other night. He didn't really play his best basketball there. But yeah, pretty good numbers. Then you go ahead and stretch the data out to the entire season view for Jason Tatum. A 75% hit rate on the year for this line. 52 out of 69 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 41.61 PRAs per game overall this season. And the data, the good data, I should say, doesn't stop there. Look at the head-to-head numbers. Each of his last 2 matchups with Phoenix, he's cashed the over, averaging 41 PRAs per game across those last 2 matchups. Now, he hasn't played Phoenix yet this year, but it's a really good defensive matchup for him because Phoenix, obviously no Kevin Durant still. He's still out. Overall, they are bottom half the league in all 3 main categories, but versus power forwards, where although their overall numbers rank pretty well, if you narrow it down to the last 7 or even 15 games, you're not going to find a worse defense against power forwards than Phoenix. Over the last 7 games, the Phoenix Suns are giving up the most points in the NBA to the power forward position, the second most assists in the NBA to the power forward position, and they are bottom 10 in rebounds allowed to the power forward position over the last 7 games. So really good matchup for Tatum. And if you go ahead and push the numbers out to the last 15 games, it's still pretty consistent. They are really, really bad at guarding the power forward position, where Tatum obviously plays right now. Even though I guess you could say he's more naturally a small forward with the way the Celtics lineup is, obviously with Jaylen Brown and whatnot, he plays power forward. But yeah, Tatum, really good matchup here. All right, guys, our 4th leg in our 5-leg parlay. We're going on to the Thunder Rockets game, 8 p.m. tip-off, the 1 seed versus the 2 seed in the Western Conference. We have Jalen Williams over 17.5 points, which we're getting for -175 over on DraftKings. And the data is really solid here, of course. Most of these player props, the data is going to be solid because, again, we're using alternate lines. But 9 of his last 10 games, he's cashed this over. It's a 90% hit rate, averaging 22.7 points per game over his last 10 games. Looking at the overall numbers for him, a 77% hit rate on the year, 51 out of 66 games. He's cashed the over, averaging 21.21 points per game overall this season. Even looking at the last 20 game data, he's cashed this in 17 of his last 20 games, averaging 21.55 points per game over the last 20. And obviously, he did just recently return from injury. But since returning from injury, he's cashed this line in all 4 games since returning from injury. So pretty good numbers here for Jalen Williams from a head-to-head perspective. Also, really strong numbers here. He's cashed this over in 6 of his last 8 games against the Houston Rockets, dating back to last season. That's a 75% hit rate, averaging 20.25 points per game across the last 8 matchups with Houston. Now, he's played Houston 4 times this year already, which of course has to do with the NBA Cup. That's why they played them an extra game. But they played 4 times so far this year. He's cashed the over in 3 of those 4 matchups this season, including 3 straight games. So some pretty good head-to-head data there. Overall, Houston, top 5 defense in the NBA versus shooting guards. They rank 14th overall. Over the last 7 games, they're a little bit worse. Not much, though. They're still inside the top 20 in terms of defense versus shooting guards, but still bottom half of the league. They rank, I think, 19th in points allowed to shooting guards over the last 7 games. So not the greatest defensive matchup of all time, but the overall data is really, really strong. The head-to-head data, everything seems to point to a really solid player prop on our hands here. So that's our 4th leg in today's parlay. And guys, our 5th and final leg in today's parlay, moving on to the Nuggets-Warriors game, 10 p.m. tip-off. We're going Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets over 44.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, which we're getting for -230 over on DraftKings. Really, really, really phenomenal data here. 8 of his last 10 games, he's cashed this over, averaging 55.9 PRAs per game over his last 10 games. There is one game that obviously skews the data a little bit, and that is that massive game he had against Minnesota the other night, 61-10-10. Somehow, when a guy scores 61-10-10, they still lose the game. That was the incredible double overtime win for Minnesota. But just goes to show how incredible Jokic is. We can go on and on. I mean, he literally has an 80% hit rate this year on this over. 52 out of 65 games this year, he's cashed the over, averaging 52.71 PRAs per game overall this year. And from a head-to-head data perspective, each of his last 5 matchups against the Golden State Warriors dating back to last year, he's cashed the over, averaging 54.4 PRAs per game over his last 5 matchups against Golden State. Now, he's only played the Warriors actually once this year, back on December 3rd. He's kind of missed the last couple of times they played them with injuries. But this game obviously has massive playoff implications. The Nuggets right now the 3 seed. The Warriors are the 5 seed. Golden State only a game and a half back of Denver here. And there's some real incentive to get the 3 seed here. Getting the 3 seed, obviously you're knocking Denver down a peg. So if you're Golden State, you get to miss Denver, obviously, in your playoff path, right? You have to play probably, right now it's Memphis, but I don't know if Memphis will hold the 6th seed. You're going to have to play probably Memphis or Minnesota or something, or maybe the Clippers, which none of them, I guess, are walking the parks necessarily. But you play them round 1, and then round 2, you get to potentially play Houston, which I think if you're Golden State, you want that, a young, inexperienced Rockets team against a veteran, well-experienced Warriors team. But the point being, if you get the 3 seed, you basically don't have to play Denver or OKC until potentially the conference finals. So there is a lot of incentive for Golden State here to try and get the 3 seed and move up. This game, they probably have to win this one. This is a must-win game if they want to leapfrog Denver, because you lose here. Now you're 2.5 games back. There's only a few games left in the season. So a must-win game, but it's also a must-win game for Denver, because if they want to hold the 3 seed for the same reasons we just talked about, avoiding OKC to potentially the conference finals and whatnot. So big implications here. The Warriors are playing on the second night of a back-to-back, but they're going to give it all they got because, they need this win a lot. But I do think Jokic in these moments will rise to the occasion. And again, Golden State, not exactly the best team when it comes to defending centers. From a scoring perspective, they actually are top 10 this year in points allowed to centers. But again, we talked about this, I think, yesterday's video. There are some players that just transcend matchups, and Jokic is definitely one of those. But the Warriors bottom 10 in the NBA in both rebounds and assists allowed to centers overall this year. So it's a pretty good matchup for Jokic. He's got a pretty good track record against the Warriors. That's our 5th and final leg of today's parlay. All right, guys. So remember earlier in the video, I told you guys the best way to tail the parlay is to click the link down below in the description that says link for today's picks. It'll take you right to this page here, and it's very simple. All you have to do is go ahead and click DraftKings and then continue in browser, or in case of you're on your phone, add to Sportsbook. It takes you right to DraftKings and plugs it all in there for you. And now all you got to do is put in how many units you want to deploy. It's that easy. It's that simple. Thanks to Outlier, man. Outlier, shout out to Outlier. They do offer a special 7-day free trial. Link down below in the description. If anything you saw in today's video, any of the data, any of the numbers impresses you and you want to learn more and you want to use this tool for yourself, because guys, these are 5 player props. There's hundreds and thousands of more that you can go ahead and choose from. Go ahead and check out Outlier. Link down below in the description. 7-day free trial to check it out for yourself. Quick little run through here. Isaiah Collier over 19.5 points, rebounds, assists for the Utah Jazz. Jalen Williams over 17.5 points for the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is the shooting guard Jalen Williams, not the other Jalen Williams they have on the team. Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics over 34.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets over 17.5 points. And Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets over 44.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. You parlay all 5 together, you get a parlay of plus 598 odds over on DraftKings. I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling really confident here. I like the data I saw. I don't find a lot of holes in the logic for a lot of these player props. The only big fear for a couple of them, obviously, and that's the fear at this point of the year, very much so, is blowouts and what teams are actually trying and which ones aren't. But overall, you've got a really, really, really solid slate here. So I'm feeling confident. Let me know down below in the comments if you're riding, if you're fading. Whatever the case may be, we will be back tomorrow with another NBA player prop video. But until then, I hope you're all winners. Guys, enjoy your Freaky Friday. Have some safe, freaky fun. Until then, I hope you're all winners. Let's go ahead and make some money. Forgot my catchphrases there. Hope you're all winners, guys. Let's go ahead and make some money.